let's talk about Nvidia. So Nvidia is the dominating company in the semiconductor space. Everyone is talking about Nvidia. It had a correction recently and it's around $117 when I'm recording this video. I've talked about this on my other channel, on my newsletter, but it's not in English. Maybe I should make one in English. And in other spaces about the problem that Nvidia has, even though it's seen as the king of all kings, even though it's like the Aegon the Conqueror in the Game of Thrones universe. The problem with Nvidia is its own success. Why I'm saying that? Well, with success, there will always come competition, and people are not taking into consideration this competition. What I'm referring here is competition like AMD, Intel, and competition, of course, from Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, and so on, other companies that are the main platforms, the companies that have the models, and the fact that they mentioned that they are working or already have developed semiconductors for their LLMs, for their models which are tweaked for them specifically. It's the same thing that Apple has been doing, and Apple, yeah, with the M3 and the M series, in fact, they mentioned that it's AI ready. So it's something that it's made in-house from a design perspective, which is specifically made for what they are doing, their ecosystem, and which is being built not by Nvidia, but by TSMC, so by Taiwan Semiconductor. So the fact that people are ignoring these facts, even though all these companies that I mentioned are not using their own semiconductors right now, it does not imply that they will not be using them in the future. What does this mean? Well, judging from the market share that Nvidia had in 2023 of 92%, I think it's around 90% right now, that may go down to 70, maybe even 60%. What does that mean? Well, if you're looking at Nvidia's revenue from computing power, well, that may go down almost in half. And also, if you think about the demand that is right now, that may also shrink in time or normalize. Why am I saying this? Well, let's think of all the companies that are now AI companies, because AI is like the boom word. Everyone is talking about AI. Everyone wants AI. Everyone mentions AI in a way. The thing is that there are a lot of companies that are actually doing API calls to ChatGPT, to OpenAI. So those are not quite AI companies, if you ask me. Those are companies that are trying to profit from a boom right now. In a way, it's similar to the 2000s. The big AI companies will survive and will thrive, will be even more monopolistic in a way, which is not necessarily a good thing, but this, I think, will happen. But there are a lot of companies which market themselves as AI and kind of increase the demand, at least fictionally, the demand for AI. And I think this will change. The slate will be cleaned a lot in the following years. And I think it won't be like 5 years. I think it will be 1 to maximum 2 years. So a lot of people are not taking into consideration this thing, that demand may normalize. What we see right now with Nvidia, and I'm talking about like what, 100% growth from a year to another. That is a lot. That will not subsist. That will not exist anymore. I think a 25% or even 20% year over year will be like a normal growth. And even if we factor that in, that means Nvidia would get to like around Google level revenue in 2028 to 2029. The Google level revenue of right now, not then, just to be precise. But in order for that to happen, Nvidia needs to keep its market share and not have that much competition, which in my opinion will not happen. It's impossible. And I think that the best parallel that I can make is Tesla. Tesla with EVs at a certain point a few years ago was the best and most sought out company for EV technology in general. So Tesla was the market king of EVs. Is that the case right now? Well, it's still the company that's selling the most cars, if I check in the past quarters, but its market share has shrinked a lot. It's not what it was like 5 to 6 years ago. So Tesla's success was also its downfall, because it sparked competition from European brands, from Chinese brands. This will also happen with Nvidia and with all companies in general. When you have like a company which is thriving and is the best in a sector, others will come for its bread. So keep that in mind, because that means the growth that we've seen in this past year will not remain for and will not follow in the next years. And this will affect a lot Nvidia's valuation. Right now what we have, and if we are generous with its growth, and I'll show you what my estimates are for Nvidia. So like a revenue growth for FY25 would be, which is like 2024 and 1 month in 2025, would be 100% growth to 121 billion, which it's kind of the estimates of analysts. 25% growth from there, and 20% ongoing until 2029, which I think it's FY29, so 2028 and 1 month in 29, which I think it's generous. It's extremely generous, with an EBIT margin of 50 to 45. I think it's like a let's say stable EBIT margin. It may be a bit generous as well going forward, but let's assume it will be this one, and with an exit multiple of 40, which is a lot. In my opinion, is too much. 25 to 30 is a maximum I would go for, but let's call Nvidia special. This would leave us with a $77.6 of fair value. Right now it's 34% overvalued after a correction that it had. So in my opinion, going all in, going like extremely risky on Nvidia is a bad call. That's my opinion. So another problem that Nvidia has is dependency to TSMC. So TSMC is like the main company when it comes to foundry and to producing chips. It's located in Taiwan, and you know, Taiwan and China not happy right now. They're not on good terms. And if by any chance a conflict which is similar to Ukraine and Russia starts between Taiwan and China, it will be, let's say, even more important for the world, because Taiwan is the capital and the center of all semiconductor related technology as the main producer. If that happens, Nvidia will fall fast, because Nvidia is fully dependent on Taiwan. Who will rise then? Well, Intel. Intel, because Intel is both a foundry and a designer, which is very important. So having, let's say, at-home production for the US, it's extremely important. That's why Intel received a lot of money to build in the United States. So keep that in mind as well, because if anything, even though a conflict does not start, but there's like a threat which is a bit too real to not take into consideration, Nvidia will fall the next day. It's extremely dependent. That's a big problem. You don't want a company which is dependent on another company. Exactly the same thing that is with ASML in a way, because ASML is the main supplier of lithography equipment, which is the technology that produces the chips. But again, it's not in a conflict area. It's in an area which is pretty safe, I would say. Just problems with regulations in Europe, because Europe regulates too much, in my opinion. So that's another problem that Nvidia has right now, being dependent on TSMC. So taking all of this into consideration, so the first issue is market share. Market share, in my opinion, will not remain at 90%. I think a fair assessment would be 70% in like 2 years or so, maximum 3 years. The other problem is competition. Competition will rise, and it will not only be from AMD and Intel, and it will be from other companies which create, design chips specifically for them, and I'm referring here to Apple, Google, Microsoft, Meta, Tesla, which are kind of and Amazon, of course, which are the main buyers of semiconductors from Nvidia, and OpenAI. Yeah, I forgot about OpenAI, which is again also thinking of creating their own semiconductor. So that will shrink a lot of market share, and that will reduce a lot of demand from Nvidia. The other issue that Nvidia has is Taiwan. The dependency on Taiwan is a very important issue, because any news coming from there which can like lead to something really bad, it will directly affect Nvidia. And of course the fact that it's not a producer, it's just a designer, so it's fabless, which gives a bit of an advantage to Intel in my opinion, which Intel mentioned that in around 2 to 3 years, and this was like in 2023, everything will change when it comes to the company. So 2025, 2026 for Intel will be a very important period. Either they do what they said or they don't, and the company will have big problems. But until then, I think Intel is the right place to invest as, let's say, an alternative to Nvidia. AMD at this moment, I think it's extremely overvalued, and keep that in mind. If you like the video, if you like my ideas when it comes to Nvidia, I'm not an Nvidia hater. I'm just trying to think outside the box and see that everything is not pink and nice and cool. There may be some issues that may arise in the following months to years, and this will affect any investor. If you're planning to invest in Nvidia around 110 to 150, and I've seen people investing in 130 plus, think again, put it on a piece of paper, see the pros and the cons, try to see it as the worst possible thing that may happen and how that will affect Nvidia. In my opinion, going around 70 to 80 like a target price would be a safer bet, even though that may also seem too much if the shit hits the fan, and I can't tell it in another way. So keep in mind that things may change and you need to be prepared for the time when that happens. You need to take into account that the unexpected may occur. So if you like the video, if you like my ideas, please leave a comment, please complete what I've mentioned, please contradict me if you think exactly the opposite, or if you think I've just talked gibberish. So please share what you have on your mind when it comes to Nvidia and the semiconductor space. If you enjoyed the video and you think it added some value to you, please hit a like. It's free for you, and also a subscribe, and maybe share with your friends, because it may help them make better decisions in the future. That's all from me. See you in the next video. Bye bye.